Give me a break, Nintendo, all right? Even if it's just like a kiss on the cheek or something and a hug, that would work for me, but I didn't even get that.
We just defeated the Demon King Ganondorf. Now it's time to recover and have a chat. With me today, I have Brad, the hero of legend.
Oh, that's a good title. I'll take it. Hello, everybody.
And me, I am Hunter, and I am also here. So, you and I did actually just defeat the Demon King Ganondorf.
Oh, that we did.
We have finally...
Yeah.
Hundreds of hours... What was your playtime in Breath of the Wild? Or sorry, Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, gee. Yeah, I do that. I do that all the time. I keep saying Breath of the Wild, and I have to correct myself each time. Jeez, honestly, I don't know on the top of my head, but I want to say it's probably in the ballpark of 100 to 120 hours. It might be a little bit more, but it's my ballpark.
I just checked my Switch. I have 190 hours in Tears of the Kingdom.
That makes sense. I think you did a lot more side quests than I did.
Yeah, I did a lot of side quests. I did all the shrines. I did quite a lot in the game before I even approached Ganondorf.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before I did most of the story, I just went ahead and did a lot of the side things.
Yeah. Well, when I say side, the first thing I did when I actually got off the Sky Island or the Great Plateau above the Great Sky Island is go bum rush through a bunch of shrines because I was tired of getting one-shotted everywhere I went. Before I even did any story events, I already had a full bar of health bars and a maxed out stamina.
Yeah, I did all the shrines before I even approached Ganondorf. So I
Oh,
had full hearts and full stamina.
So before doing any of the quests at all?
Not before any of the quests. I did.
Oh, okay.
That was before I did the 4 regional phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also did a majority of the side quests that I had as well. Which was actually like most of the side quests. I did just started a lot of them, but not finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through and kind of finished them all. And then just before I was about to fight Ganondorf, so I got that quest that said defeat Ganondorf or destroy Ganondorf or whatever it was. I went ahead and just wrapped up all the side quests, wrapped up some of the stuff in the depths, just so I had like most of the story, like basically the entire story completed before going in to fight Ganondorf.
Isn't it fun when you do, like, when I went out into the world and I did things before doing any side quests or any of the quests, there's a lot of dialogue options that happen of, like, Link shows up and he already has the goods you're looking for, or he already explored that area. And I took note of that each time. There was always an answer by the NPC or somebody where it's like, what? You already did that? And there was like this whole other dialogue that they did. I always appreciate games doing that. And there was a lot of that in Tears of the Kingdom. It was fun.
I just like the dialogue options in general because a lot of them basically boil down to either yes or no options.
Yeah.
But the way that they're presented is really funny. So like there are some of them that like the no options. Link is a little sarcastic in his response. He's like poking fun at the person or something. Like I just really enjoyed the dialogue options, like seeing what I could tell the people and then seeing like kind of their reactions. It was kind of funny.
That's kind of funny hearing that from a very stoic man too.
Yeah, I know. So it's just kind of interesting. It took us about a month and a half from release to finally finish the game, and then almost 2 months actually to finally finish the game. And now here we are.
Yeah, and I did mine a little faster, mainly because I didn't want to get spoiled. I thought after a month of doing what I was doing and playing the game, I was like, I really need to finish the story before I start seeing stuff online, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, that was a big motivator for me, too. I saw what was close to spoilers on like Reddit and stuff, but I like looked away just in time and then closed the app or something. As I just didn't want to be spoiled at all. So I was like, okay, now I need to...
I was going to say traversing dangerous areas.
Yeah, so I basically kind of put a lock on myself for that last week there. Like, don't go on any social media. Just beat the game. And then I actually beat it like the day before you did. Literally, like, we were only hours apart because I texted you, I think, actually, like, hey, I beat the game last night. It was actually like early in that morning, technically, because it was like 5 a.m. or something. And then you were like, oh, I just beat the game an hour ago. So we had actually like we're only a few hours apart from beating the game last week. This is kind of interesting. Well, like we're both of us, it seems like we're close to 200 hours, over 100 hours into the game, and almost 2 months afterwards. What other game? What other game could you say that about? Breath of the Wild, I guess.
I mean, besides Breath of the Wild, there's, on par with some of those other open worlds like Skyrim, or you could even say like Elden Ring took me about the same to really get through. But not a lot more, at least in my mind. Red Dead Redemption 2, even though I think that game took me 70 hours. So yeah, not too much.
Not a whole lot, yeah. I guess before we get into the story spoilers, which by the way, this is going to be a very heavily spoiler oriented discussion. We beat the game. Nothing's off the table right now.
Yeah, we did our time. Now do yours.
If you haven't already. To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if someone clocks like 300 hours or something into this game before.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either.
But overall, what did you think about the world itself and how it's kind of changed since Breath of the Wild?
So the first thing was, and I think we've said this many times, at least I have, when we first saw the world and what Nintendo was doing with this game, was I was kind of concerned that there wouldn't be enough or that it would feel too samey. So I'm glad to say that it doesn't feel samey. Yes, the land feels somewhat the same from a bird's eye view, but when you're really actually interacting with the NPCs, what they're doing, all the different caves, like the world itself has opened up drastically. And the Sky Islands are fun because the land has something to do with the Sky Island, so there's always something to do. The depths are cool just because going into there, we noted early on that it's just the inverse of the actual land of Hyrule. So you can kind of take that pre-established knowledge if you figured it out early enough, and it'll kind of help you guide your way through the depths. The enemies of the depths were, especially early on, they were much more terrifying. I actually stayed away from the depths for at least half the game until I felt comfortable going in. So I didn't even venture into it all too much until later. But overall, like, I actually do think there was a lot to do and a lot to see, and in a way that it quelled my kind of hesitation going in.
And I like the way that they reinterpreted the existing world, because they did add the Sky Islands. They did add the depths. So like they more than doubled the size of Breath of the Wild in Tears of the Kingdom. But I also liked just exploring the overworld too, which is weird because I did that in the last game. But like so many parts of this game are different, whether it be just chunks of the Sky Islands that have fallen down or like other like bits and pieces of the world. So like exploring Castletown and seeing the lack of guardians, for example, and just seeing like, oh, this is the reservoir, it's starting to get filled up again. Like little things like that, to some of the more notable areas in Breath of the Wild. I actually have a small list here of places that I wanted to see how different they were from Breath of the Wild. Just notable areas in that world. The 7 heroines statues. Have you been there? Yeah, like some of them are sunken in the sand.
Oh.
You didn't notice that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, the 7 heroine statues are not all there. Some of them are sunken, and you actually have to go, not underground, but you have to like go inside some of those sinkholes and actually see them. And a lot of the little orbs that they had are actually in Gerudo Town now. And there's actually a few different quests revolving around those orbs.
I remember doing a quest in Gerudo Town about, I think it was 7 orbs.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't put the 2 and 2 together for that.
Yeah, and going to the 7 heroine statues themselves and kind of seeing what has happened since, the Great Plateau. Just exploring the Great Plateau in the absence of all the Great Plateau shrines. There are these holes where you can go into the depths. And then also like the old man's hut, I noticed like was demolished, but then there's like a Sheikah hut, or not Sheikah, the Yiga clan hideout there. And yeah, the Shrine of Resurrection was also like a Yiga clan thing. It's kind of, anyways, just like seeing the Great Plateau and how much it's changed. Like the old man hut's not there, the Yiga clan moved in, seeing the Temple of Time and the changes that have happened to the Temple of Time. Actually, I saw what looked like Zelda. Actually like Zelda just standing there, not remembering who she was actually a Yiga clan guy, was disguised as her. So like
Oh,
these
I wish
small
I would have
little
experienced that.
yeah, like a bunch of like small details like that. Another thing that I had on here was the horse god, like
Yeah.
just little tiny things. Like they had to spice up all of these different areas. Like so, like the horse god, like he wasn't at Melania, wasn't at the same spot that Melania was in
No.
Breath of the Wild.
In
There's a
fact, I
different
think all
horse
of them
there now.
moved.
Yes, all of them did move. Lurelin Village was destroyed by pirates. Hateno Village is all like mushroomy, which actually we saw in some of
I
the
think it was in the trailer.
yeah, some trailers beforehand. Someone from a different kingdom moved in and kind of started introducing her fashion to the Hateno village. The mazes from Breath of the Wild had different quests associated with them, and it was more than just the mazes this time, which is something that we speculated about actually. Terrytown, completely different. Skull Lake, Gutcheck Rock, Typhlo Ruins, all of these different places. The Korok Forest was changed. The Yiga Clan hideout was. I think that was super cool. Did you walk through the Yiga Clan hideout?
I went back through the Yiga Clan hideout, and if correct me if I'm wrong, there's a hole there, right, to get into the depths, which would make sense because that's where we last left him off. It was going essentially to the depths.
Yeah, it was kind of like a teaser, kind of almost like kind of seeing like, hey, there's more to this map.
Yeah.
So yeah, like walking through the Yiga Clan hideout, like wearing the armor, pretending to be a Yiga, I think was kind of really interesting. Seeing like I remember sneaking through this place and like putting bananas in places to distract the guards and stuff. Like now you're just kind of like walking freely. That's really cool. Seeing how much that's changed. Thundra Plateau also had like some small changes. The God's Creator went from being like those like little craters that like were like meteor impact sites or something, turned into caves. That's super cool. Like if you fight like some of the taluses there and the pebblets and stuff in Breath of the Wild, which there are still some there, but they have mostly changed into caves. They got caved in or something. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, the only notable places on Breath of the Wild's map that are like small, like bigger or smaller notable places that hadn't changed much, and I was actually disappointed that they didn't do too much with, was the heart-shaped lake and the Heartbreak Lake. I went to those places, and one of them actually has a guy there that was hoping to find love, but it was at the Heartbreak Lake. So he actually was.
Oh, he went to the wrong lake.
And then if you go to the heart-shaped lake, there's the whole quest there where you have to like unite this guy that was looking for love and this Gerudo woman who was looking for love, and then they go on their first date and everything. But in Tears of the Kingdom, they didn't do anything with them. That was a little disappointing. So stuff like that, I was, to be fair, those were some of the smaller areas in Breath of the Wild. There was like one quest associated with one of them and a joke at the other one. But there was nothing in Tears of the Kingdom. But almost everywhere, all the notable places in Breath of the Wild, they did something different with.
And even if they didn't do anything different with, because you have new powers and a new way of traversing the world, it's going to feel different because you're going to go about it a different way. And you're going to experience the experience in and of itself will be different.
Yeah, so it's just kind of interesting. I like seeing all of the areas from Breath of the Wild and how they've changed, how they've reinterpreted those areas now.
Yeah.
That was super cool.
Well, how did you like the shrines? I actually really liked these new different shrines and what they tried doing this time as compared to last time. Specifically, the Eventide shrines. I'm going to call them Eventide shrines. They're essentially take away your stuff and, go about this combat situation, but from nothing.
I don't think that they were as difficult as Eventide, but
no.
I enjoyed kind of puzzling through how I'm supposed to be approaching that each combat encounter. Like they would give you like shock fruits or something if if the designers wanted you to approach it in that way. But then like sometimes I actually like noticed the way that I was supposed to handle it either halfway through or towards the end of the shrine, and I was like, oh, there was an easier way I was supposed to do this, but I just brute forced my way through it.
Yeah. There's definitely some of them where I cheesed it.
Yeah, and I appreciate how the game allowed me to do that though.
It was a linear approach enough, but with enough freeform for me to deal with the challenge that like I can't ignore the challenge, but there's some levity in how I'm going to deal with it. That I like. I really like.
And there were a few shrines that I'm pretty sure that I did it the wrong way because I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to do it. So I just figured out my own solution. And actually, I was helping my girlfriend with some of them because she wasn't sure how she was supposed to do it. And I was like, well, I did it this way, but now that I'm looking at it again, I'm pretty sure that this is the right answer. And then we did it that way. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the way you're supposed to do it. I did it wrong. Just kind of like on a second chance looking at it, I was like, oh, okay, I definitely did it the wrong way.
So there was actually, I think there's probably a couple different ways that I did a dungeon that I was definitely not supposed to do, or I did it by pure accident. There was one where I dropped a ball. It's one of those balls that are supposed to go into the little hole to activate to allow you to complete the dungeon. I dropped it really high, and it wanted me to do something else, but it fell down, hit a crystal that lit up an area to move the basket for the ball, and then the ball just landed perfectly in the hole. And I'm looking at everything and looking at all the other contraptions that the game wanted me to deal with, and I'm like, I didn't mean to do that. And I recorded that, so I'll show it to you next time. But I did not mean to do that.
Yeah, there's a few things like that like this is not the intended way, but cool, neat.
No.
I'm getting through the shrine at least.
The shrines do make a point that like you can't summon the Zonai equipment if you're already in a shrine, right? But if you already have the Zonai equipment on your shield or something, you can use it. So there will be times where if I already have a rocket, I can almost entirely skip the mini dungeon or the shrine just by going really high up and just floating to the end exit. Or what I did, I had the what was it? The glider, the Zonai glider, and I had that on my shield. And that gave me the ability to double jump a little higher than usual. So there was a lot of areas where my little shield surf actually just got me just that edge, so that there's areas where I could completely ignore.
Nice.
And just skip over to the next section.
Yeah, the really open approach to this game was really, really interesting to me. They also blocked the Sage's abilities as well, I noticed. Yeah. You can't use any of the Sage's abilities because, like, Tulin's, like, Wind Gust, for example, could probably break some of the shrines also.
Yeah.
Or, like, seeing Yonobo, like, doing his charge thing could also probably break some. So, I understand why they did that. It's all for the puzzles purposes.
Mm-hmm. And even then, you still have the ability to, if you know what you're doing, cheese it. And that at least I like going on YouTube, and I like seeing how people handle different situations.
So being that we both actually finished the game and have experienced, I think I've experienced all of the story. I haven't 100% of the game, but I did a lot of the things that I assume story content would come out of. I know that you didn't do quite everything, but you did at least beat the game.
Yeah, so I did all the main quests. So all the main quests are done. I did some of the side quests, but in terms of the generality of the story, I've done it.
How did you feel about the approach or replacement for, I guess, Breath of the Wild's memories? Because that's essentially what they were. In Breath of the Wild, you had these pictures that you were supposed to explore and kind of figure out, like, oh, this is the same spot, and then you get the memory for, like, Link's memories of that time at that place.
So one thing I will say, I very much appreciate that they didn't do the same thing as last time, because Breath of the Wild, it was at sometimes very frustrating finding those memories. It was sometimes pretty hard to find them, and also there wasn't, at least to me, the cues for which order those memories belonged in wasn't as easy for me to read. So in my playthrough of Breath of the Wild, I actually saw some of the later memories, and that kind of spoiled me a little bit in terms of how the past laid out. In this game, in Tears of the Kingdom, they straight up kind of tell you the linearity of the memories, even though you don't need to go see it like that. But I do appreciate, like, there's the tabernacles or the wall paintings. It kind of goes in a clockwise route and kind of gives you an indication. It's like, hey, you should probably go see this one first. I very much appreciated that because my fiance started doing the things out of order. And she saw some of the later memories, which completely blows the lid off of what happens on the earlier memories.
That's funny. My girlfriend did the same thing.
Yeah, and so she actually gave me a warning that, hey, those memories are not are out of order. Be careful.
Hmm.
And so that prompted me to be like, oh, I don't want what happened in Breath of the Wild. So I don't like the memories route. However, I do like it that it's not Link's memories this time. It's Zelda's memories, so it still kind of feels like forward progression. So I
Yeah.
think this is better than Breath of the Wild.
So the basic structure of this game compared to Breath of the Wild was it's still kind of similar. It's location based memories. So you
Yeah.
have to go through like find the location and then watch the cutscene, basically. Same thing as Breath of the Wild. But it's telegraphed a lot clearer because you see the geoglyphs is what they're called all around
Hmm.
Hyrule, which is something that we noticed throughout the trailers. Like, hey, that looks like a person praying, or that looks like a sword, as we were
Yeah.
kind of watching the trailers. In the game, as we're actually playing the game, we realize, oh, those are the memory locations. So you
Hmm.
go there, and that's how you watch the cutscene. So it's kind of obvious. You can see throughout the world where they are. But then if you're doing the quest line the way that you're supposed to do it, you talk to Impa, you see the first memory, basically.
Hmm.
And it's actually not Link's memories this time, they're Zelda's memories. These are the tears of the kingdom. The tears are Zelda's tears, or the Light Dragon's tears, rather. As in my head, it's like she's. Because the idea behind becoming a dragon, the process of draconification is losing yourself, losing your memories, and becoming kind of like an empty shell of who you used to be.
Yeah.
And in my head, that's like, okay, that's Zelda showing her memories. It's the only way that she can show off her memories,
Hmm. She's
is
literally
by,
shedding her memories.
yeah, kind of, that's the process of draconification. So you see the memories start to spill out, kind of, and you're watching through Zelda's memories of the events that happened. And that was kind of cool to see, like, what is Zelda up to? Because you have that quest, find Princess Zelda.
Yeah, and
And
all of this wasn't told to you until later, which I appreciate, like actual forward progression of story and
mhm,
a surprise twist that actually kind of hit me in the heart.
yeah, I saw it coming from like the I think fifth or sixth memory or something when
There,
it
there
was
was
first
there
brought
was a
up.
memory, yeah, there was a
Yeah,
memory where they put it on the nose a little bit, in my opinion, a little too hard.
yeah. And then I looked at
I'm
the
like,
light dragon. I saw
I'm
the
like,
blonde
oh,
hair, and I was like, "Oh, Zelda, what did you
I'm like,
do,
yeah, that makes
man?"
sense.
But so instead of just kind of getting a big clump of images and saying, "Go figure it out," you're actually kind of led to the through the story. You're supposed to go to this like forgotten temple, which was in Breath of the Wild, which is another place that kind of was changed from its purpose from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
So they go to the forgotten temple and they realize that behind the big goddess Hylia statue, which is now toppled over, and there's a whole different quest regarding the reason why it was toppled over, and you can put it back upright again and everything. But the behind the goddess Hylia statue, you actually see the order that you're supposed to be doing things, the
yeah,
order
the
that
world map of where
presumably,
everything is.
yeah, presumably in Skyward Sword, because that temple was created in Skyward in the, or I guess technically slightly before Skyward Sword or something like that, but then before it fell to the earth. They kind of carved in later the Zonai, or I guess post Hylian race or something, whatever, after the Zonai, carved that location saying like, hey, this is where Zelda was crying. This is where the Light Dragon was crying, and it seems to be kind of important.
Yeah.
So you go through and you go through the tiers in order. You watch her memories in order. I was slightly out of order. I just kind of pinned the locations on the map and then was roughly in order, but I noticed that I did some stuff out of order. I wasn't paying that close attention, I guess.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I did get help because my fiance made sure that after I was like, "Oh, okay, this is the order." She was like, "No, you can't watch it out of order. Can't watch it." She just sat there and made sure I did it
Oh.
all. And it at least it wasn't too hard finding everything, because I think it probably took me about 30 minutes to get all the memories. It
Hmm.
didn't take me too long. I already had
Yeah.
all the map ready and open, so it just,
Yeah, same.
teleport to the nearest sky shooter and just go there.
Yeah, make my hover bike and then fly to it.
Yeah.
So I actually released a video recently because I did a screen capture of all of the memories in order. and I published that video. So you can actually, I'll link it in the description, all the memories in Tears of the Kingdom in order. But I watched it technically slightly out of order. But that actually didn't matter too much. I could still tell roughly when each event took place.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, well, one of them was Demise killing Sonya. And then, like, another one was Demise bending the knee. Or sorry, yeah, Ganondorf, my bad. Ganondorf.
I was going to say, this is confusing me.
Sorry, this is before he went Demise mode in my head. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Well, he looks
so
like
Ganondorf killing Ganondorf. Ganondorf killing Ganondorf. What am I even saying anymore? Ganondorf
Mr.
killing
Dragmire.
Sonya. But then
Mr.
another
Dragmire
one
killing Sonya.
Mr. Dragmire himself. And then another one, like, Sonya is alive and having a tea party with Zelda. So I'm like, okay, clearly I can tell the order of events, you know?
I missed something.
Yeah. There's just clearly
some context I'm
events.
out of right now.
Yeah, they're talking about this character named Minoru. But, like, I haven't met Minoru yet, so who's Minoru? So clearly there's another memory slotted in between here. But then even in the menus, when you're able to rewatch them later, you can see which ones you're missing.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see the correct order that you're supposed to be watching them. So I ended up doing that later. It took like an hour or so just to go through all the memories.
And that kind of brings me to the prevalence of Ganondorf in these memories. And obviously he kicks off the game. I really like the way that Breath of the Wild starts the game, where it's, you know, it's almost cinematic in a way where you're going through. And
I mean, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Yeah, I keep doing it.
We're going
Tears of the Kingdom. In Tears of the Kingdom, where, you know, fully decked out on health bars, fully ready to take on anything. You're going with Zelda into the undergrounds, and you just get rushed by Ganondorf, and you're just no match. And from there, in all the memories, he plays a very pivotal role in everything going from there. One, I like that because I like Ganondorf, but two, they gave him a redesign in this game. How do you like his redesign?
So it's a pretty slight redesign, I think, at least compared to his depiction in Twilight Princess. So I think we're going to have a different video talking about the timeline and all of that. But if we're supposed to think that this is a different Ganondorf or a different reincarnation of Ganondorf, because he has been reincarnated before, then I think it looks fairly consistent with at least his appearance in Twilight Princess. He probably looks a little bit less like a middle-aged man. But
I think he has the nose of the Ocarina Ganon. He has a pretty decently sniffer there.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same dad bod though. And
no,
I think that's probably
definitely this one was definitely huffing whey protein and hitting the gym.
Yeah.
And showing it off too.
Yeah, no, he was a freaking unit, and he I thought that it was kind of cool. It was weird how they went with like I guess the idea was like Ronin samurai kind of vibe, which I think thematically makes sense because Ronin were a samurai that used to be samurai or like unofficial samurai before that became more of a set in stone title, where they were kind of on their own, mainly like dirt poor, kind of not kind of like acting as dukes or something in like the political hierarchy that they had later on. But even then, like there were during like the shogunate, there were Ronin samurai that kind of were exiled from the larger kingdom and kind of were doing their own thing. And that's kind of the idea of Ganondorf, I think, in this game, was that he was going to bend the knee, and you see him in his more traditional, like fully clothed self. But then he starts looking a bit more samurai-like the further that you get into the game. And that's when he goes full Ronin. And he actually even has a katana. He has a samurai sword, which I thought was kind of cool. But like he just actually went full Ronin, like actually.
Yeah, it is different than the other ones. So at least the Twilight Princess Ganondorf kind of felt like more like a Dark Knight sort of thing with his typically cladded armor and like just a more or less normal just long sword. And it is also different from Ocarina, where
the Sword of the Sages or something like that.
In Ocarina, it's kind of weird. He has this ginormous claymore that looks cool. It looks like something that you'd behead somebody with, but he doesn't use it in Ocarina, even though he has it. A little weird. He uses it in Smash Bros. That sword. So there has been moments where he has changed, but I will say I do think this one it's cool. It is the most unique one amongst the Ganondorfs. Even like even in the Hyrule Warriors, that Ganondorf was still more or less kind of cladded in armor, even though it did kind of. I think he did use more Japanese attire, if I remember.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, he was like a Japanese general, even with his hairdo and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit of a departure, but not too far fetched considering they are desert people. I would imagine his garbs would probably be on the lighter side, considering he's in the desert. You're probably not going to be dressed up like a dark nut in the desert. That's going to be very hot.
Yeah, exactly. So the type of sword that I was trying to look for was Odachi. So it's a type of Japanese katana or katana-like sword, I think, technically. So for the most part, Ganondorf has been depicted wielding a claymore, which is a type of long sword that was mainly used to like cut down horses and stuff as they were like galloping, charging towards you. They weren't really used in actual combat too much, but they were mainly for like cutting horses, you know. And the Japanese
he single-handed a claymore. He is
he used an actual claymore, just like,
with one hand. Link has to use two, but Ganondorf uses one.
Same with like what was I forget what I keep was the Dusk Sword in Twilight Princess, or the Dusk Claymore, yeah, which is also actually in Tears of the Kingdom. So he used the Dusk Claymore in Twilight Princess. So he keeps on using these like massive swords that aren't usually meant for actual like person v person combat, but he's just so freaking powerful that he can wield it as his regular sword. Yeah. And it's kind of a similar thing with the Odachi in Tears of the Kingdom. They were also kind of the Japanese equivalent. They were made similar to katana, where they had the strengthened back end, so that and like very sharp front end, so that way they could cut really proficiently. So that's why you see like the cutting power of the sword is almost like a hammer with a nail, with how like strong it is. You have a lot of forward momentum that even no matter how sharp it is, you're able to cut through stuff. And with the Odachi was basically like a really long version of a katana, where you were able to cut through like horses' like feet really, really efficiently. And also Samurai used to do it. Sephiroth's sword actually is an Odachi, yeah. So he is also strong enough to be able to wield it as his regular sword. So oftentimes it was used by a samurai either on the ground, kind of cutting horses as they came, or they were wielded by a samurai on top of a horse, so that way they had a weapon that they could use on top of a horse. It's a regular sword isn't really as useful, you know?
Doesn't have the reach.
Yeah. So kind of the Ronin version, the Ronin take on Ganondorf was using an Odachi, which I think makes a lot of sense. That's super cool. You know, they're tying in real world lore with the real world lore changes alongside his lore changes, you know? I feel like that makes sense. That's really cool.
Overall, I think it's a really cool depiction of Ganondorf. Just in a different way. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, because I do really, really like the Dark Knight, like Twilight Princess Ganon. I think it's really cool. But I also really like the normal. When I say normal, I mean Ocarina Ganon, which is like a blend of, because he doesn't really wear like heavy armor like he did in Twilight Princess. He's much more leathery,
more along the lines of a wizard in that game. And I think it was more like leathery and cloth-like. Yeah, I think he's even referred to as like a magician or something like that.
Yeah, he wields dark magic.
He's basically a dark wizard. So yeah, I thought that this was kind of I thought that this was kind of a cool take on that character. And just some other stuff about Ganondorf, kind of lore-wise. I noticed that so in Ocarina, he was raised by two witches, which actually, come to think of it, his wizard kind of mannerisms makes a lot more sense. But he was raised by what were their names?
It was the twin
Twin Rova, basically. Twin Rova.
That's when they
different parts combined. Kotake and Koome. So he was raised by those two witches. And in Tears of the Kingdom, there are actually two characters behind him that have carvings on, I think it was their swords, that actually say Kotake and Koome. So
that's a cool little neat thing they put in there.
In this sense, I think that they're more to be interpreted as his underlings rather than his mothers. But it's just kind of interesting. We see these reoccurring characters. I know that technically Ganondorf and Link and Zelda are the ones that are cursed to always be reincarnated.
Yeah, but there's
you see Tingle,
Beetles there,
you see Beetle,
Tingle,
Impa,
even
is a
Rauru, technically,
Rauru. And so it's interesting to see that like Ganondorf has his old gang now. This is kind of interesting. To see.
The posse's back.
Yeah, he's got his own little posse.
One thing that I actually took note on is the fairly minimal role that I think the Triforce played in this game. It is still there, but I think the other games it was much more prominent.
It depends on the game. Some games the Triforce is basically non-existent, but so like in Link's Awakening, for example, I don't know if the Triforce is even mentioned, but this game does have elements of the Triforce. So I noticed that Sonia has some tattoos that are 3 triangles. I know in Breath of the Wild, Zelda taps into the power of the Triforce, and you actually see the 3 triangles appear as she's defeating all the Guardians, saving Link. And you see the Triforce
sealing Ganon.
And sealing Ganon. You see the Triforce a few times, but I don't remember if I saw the word Triforce written out.
I don't think,
for example.
In terms of actually seeing its power, I think Zelda uses her light power, but I think that's actually distinctly different than the Triforce itself. So I don't know if we actually see the Triforce come out, and I don't even think anybody even referenced it.
I think that, and if I had to guess, this is maybe dipping into some ideas that I had for potential DLC, but there is one specific memory where there's a bunch of Molduga. Ganondorf kind of unleashed a bunch of Molduga to attack the Kingdom of Hyrule. And Sonia, or at first Rauru, puts his hand out and starts charging up some light magic. And then Sonia does the same thing. And then Zelda does it. She raises her hand to help. And her magic is so much brighter and powerful than Sonia's and Rauru's that Sonia actually looks surprised for a sec. She's like, what the heck? And sees just how freaking powerful Zelda's magic is. And Zelda's like looking at her like, I don't know. I'm just really powerful, I guess. And then just unleashes this massive laser beam at all of the Molduga, stopping them, basically. And it's mentioned that because she's Rauru and Sonia's descendant, that she has both time and light powers in her. Yeah. At first, I was wondering because, Rauru is using his light magic. Sonia is using her time magic in a laser beam. I don't know. And maybe because it's kind of unexplained. But then since she has both, maybe it's not just half and half. Maybe it's 1 and 1, so it's double as powerful. But then I was thinking, well, in Breath of the Wild, we see her tap into the power of the Triforce. So maybe that's her connection with the Triforce. It's kind of unexplained.
Yeah, they don't really address it. And to be honest, like kind of the stand-in for the Triforce, at least for this game, as being kind of like the all-powerful something or other object, is the Secret Stones. So some of this can also be explained with the Secret Stones as well.
Yeah, but then Rauru and Sonia both had Secret Stones, and they weren't as powerful as Zelda.
That's true.
So it's just one of those things where, like, it's kind of hard to tell what that was, and I feel like that was a plot line that didn't get fully explored.
No. Not everything. At the very least, I do say that this game does a better job at exploring its story and its characters a little bit more than Breath of the Wild.
Well, it had more story than Breath of the Wild.
Well, yeah, that's... Breath of the Wild I always did find to be, like, the weakest link of that game is the fact that its story was kind of meh. All the interesting stuff happened in the past. Whereas in this game, here's the kingdom. Yes, interesting stuff has happened in the past, but you are also living in some pretty interesting stuff now. So at the very least, you do feel like you are part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I in my head, that was the Triforce in this game, was seeing her using that power. But on the other hand, we literally don't know. It was an unexplained. They literally went nowhere with that.
There is literally, aspect. At least within the main quest, there is no text that says Triforce.
that I'm aware of. Maybe somewhere there's like a journal or diary or something.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
maybe in the side, like maybe the side
yeah.
quest deals with some things, but at least in terms of the main quest that the game presents, they never say
Yeah.
Triforce.
There could have been something that I maybe forgot or like just didn't realize, but I don't think that I don't think that the Triforce is as plays as big of a role, at least in the Tears of the Kingdom,
Yeah.
compared to some of the other games where you're literally collecting the Triforce and wielding the Triforce, for example.
On the topic of going to the past and whatnot, how did you like the king, the Rauru, the king? It's because apparently this is the first king of Hyrule. In previous games, Rauru has just been the Light Sage, not a king.
Yeah.
But in this game, Rauru
Well,
is both the Light Sage and the king.
in Skyward Sword, the chief or whatever of Skyloft was Gebora. And in Ocarina of Time, there was the character that was Gebora Gebora, which was the owl. And it was also revealed later to be the Light Sage. So in my head, I feel like, well, yeah, there was a king of Hyrule in Ocarina of Time, and his name was probably not either Gebora Gebora or Rauru. But I feel like the connection to Skyward Sword with the village chief basically being named the same thing that Rauru was named in a different game makes me feel like, okay, he's not technically a king, but if presumably the Kingdom of Hyrule is established later, and then we see on the timeline, there's actually, during the era of prosperity, there is the establishment of the Kingdom of Hyrule, which presumably we're seeing in Tears of the Kingdom, then, I feel like that's fine that Rauru is the king, because he was kind of the ruler of the world in Skyward Sword. I thought that was a fun kind of tie-in to some of the existing games. I think that it's interesting that he's like a dragon goat person.
Yeah, I think aesthetically, I'm not pleased with the way he looks. I'm looking at that like, it's kind of ugly for your first king. I didn't think it was gonna be a goat thing.
That's what one of the miscellaneous notes that I have actually is that his outfit just looks super dumb. just even his outfit. Although I thought that it was kind of cool that he was compared to the two Zonai characters that we have are Minoru and Rauru, and of the two of them, Raru's outfit is a little bit more maybe sexually explicit than Minoru's, is what I would put it. He's like showing midriff and stuff, whereas Minoru's is actually a lot more conservative, which is kind of the opposite of how a lot of games are. I thought that was funny.
You straight up see hips and everything, but
that the gender dynamics got split.
It kind of goes hand in hand, though. I look at that and I'm like, I don't like that. It looks weird. You have weird hips, even weirder than like Gerudo hips are very prominent and they look a little weird. But the dragon hips, what the hell am I looking at?
Dragon hips.
Yeah, I was like, why does this dragon have hips like that? It's weird.
Raru's got them dragon hips. I think that it was interesting. I think it's an
interesting I think it's an interesting direction to have like the first king of Hyrule, and he's not a Hylian whatsoever. It changes the way that I like kind of viewed the land. I'm like, oh, I thought like the Hylians were just like the people blessed of the goddess Hylia, but now I'm like, they have like a dragon for their first king though.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Considering that people can become dragons through the process of draconification.
This is a very good segue, by the way.
Thank you. It makes me feel like maybe the Zonai were maybe more human-like, but then because they're closer to the gods, even closer than the Hylians are, they are sort of magically more dragon-like. I don't know. It's kind of hard to figure out what the deal with them looking so draconic is, considering that like humans can become dragons too.
Yeah, I'm assuming everything can become dragons based off of the rules that Tears of the Kingdom establish. I mean, we see dragons in Breath of the Wild. I
would love to see a Goron dragon, for example.
Goron dragon would be awesome. I'm wondering that brings into question what the history of the dragons that are already there about. They have the
Yeah.
similar names to the old gods of Ocarina, right? I could be wrong, but I thought they had
Um,
similar names, like Pharaoh,
Farash and Nair.
Din.
Yeah. So same with in Skyward Sword, there was the three dragons, and they clearly had their mental faculties kind of together. So it raises some interesting questions with dragons being a species rather than a magically you can become one
Entity.
type thing. So I don't know. It's interesting, but just regarding the dragon like nature of the Zonai, I think if I had to guess, it's somehow they are more magically kind of like lower gods in a way. There's like the higher gods, and then like Hylia, the three golden goddesses, etc. And then there's like
I have to agree.
the lower gods, which are like Zonai in a way. And
It's
because
kind of like the Zonais are the demigods, and then like
yeah,
dragons are gods, but they're not like Zeus. They're more like, you know, a god of a very specific forest or something. Like, yeah, the like lesser gods.
yeah, but then you have like goddess Hylia, which you can actually directly speak to through the goddess statues. And like she clearly is in charge of her emotions, like mental faculties, because she can talk to you. So there's a few like I feel like we're using the term God in a different way because like in theology there's like several different like takes on the idea of God. There's like the Greek pantheon, for example, where there's like the 12 Olympians.
Yeah. Yeah, they all
But
have
then like
roles.
yeah, below them there are like a bunch of other gods. There's like god of like volcanoes and stuff. But then below them there are like nymphs of like specific lakes and stuff, you know. So there's kind of like different takes on God. Same with like Shintoism. We use the word kami as like in replacement for God, but then it's not quite the same thing because then there's like like higher and lesser kami. And then there's like yokai, which is like also god-like beings that like represent certain emotions or physical things, you know.
Yeah,
So
I always had I always didn't know where to put Hylia in comparison to the other like three gods of the Triforce. Like, was she
yeah,
above? Was she below? What? Where
there's the
did she fit?
goddess. There's the goddess of light, and then there's the goddess of time. Is Hylia one of those? A lot of people think that Hylia is the goddess of time, but then
I
they're
don't
like
think so.
also
She would have to be light. I thought.
I would think light, yeah, especially since they are considered different elements in the same way that like ice and fire are considered different elements in this world. So I don't know. It's interesting though the idea of like so there's these like higher gods that like presumably live in the sacred realm or something like that, and then there are the like lesser gods
That
that like
roam around Hyrule as dragons.
yeah, or like Melania is the horse god. So like I don't know. This it's so
But you,
confusing.
but it acts very much like a great fairy, and in fact has
Yeah,
the rules apply like a great fairy,
and the
even though
great
it's
fairies are
technically
kind
not.
of godlike. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that we're
Yeah,
putting our like a Western religious word terms. I really don't want to get this have this video demonetized talking about religion
yeah.
and stuff like that. But we're putting our terms on a fantasy world that is clearly based on not just Western esotericism, but also Eastern esotericism and Shintoism and all of these different like ancient Greek mythology and all of these different types of mythologies. You know, we see like some Christian
Yeah.
mythology, we see some Greek mythology, we see some Shinto mythology, we see several different takes kind of all mixed into one religion in Hyrule, which is the like how people can become dragons. And there is a sacred realm which some gods live in, and then there is also Earth where other lesser gods live in. So I think that we're applying our Western mythology onto an amalgamation of the world's mythology in a way.
So going back to the story and its impact on dragons, when Zelda actually took the bite, how did you think that was going to get resolved?
I thought for a second that we were just going to lose Zelda.
I thought if Nintendo was brave, they were going to do that. Or okay, in my mind, I thought two things were going to happen. One, because we're already dealing with time travel stuff, Link was going to go back in time to do the
Yeah.
fight with Ganondorf, so that Zelda
We had a
wouldn't
theory
have to
about
do
that in another video.
And then my other thing was going to be like, we're going to do the Japanese thing where they never actually give me the love story that I'm looking for. And what I thought was going to happen is that Link would also eat a secret stone in the final attempt to defeat Ganon, and by doing that, essentially permanently separate Link and Zelda from each other. But in order to save the Hyrule, take the same plunge that Zelda did.
But instead, they went with the more traditional saved her kind of route.
Okay, so maybe because our next section is the ending, and maybe we could talk about the ending, because that actually rubbed me like very much the wrong way, because I'm like, what no consequences, what like you just
that's I felt the same way at the end of Breath of the Wild, though. And I remember you and I had a conversation where you beat Breath of the Wild before I did, and I was telling you after I did the first Divine Beast, and I saw Mipha's ghost, and I was like, oh, Mipha died. And then I started realizing there are 3 other characters, including Urbosa, who doesn't have a longer lifespan like the Zora do.
Zoras are like elves.
Yeah, they can live for like hundreds of years, but there are other races here, and like the Rito, for example, have like way shorter lifespans than humans do. So clearly some of these characters aren't alive anymore, and then I realized it's been 118 years minimum. So Zelda is either 118 years old or she's gone. And I was kind of, as I was playing through the game, I was like kind of thinking like, oh no, I don't know if my heart can take that.
The
you're
going to get denied.
Yeah, like the Princess of Hyrule is actually dead. Like, you actually failed. Like the
lineage is done, and you're just picking up the pieces.
But then they went ahead and she was magically still.
She was
18 or something.
Still 18.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like that was kind of a cop out. So, and so I mean, to be fair, Link is also like over 100. So he looks that way.
He didn't age either.
But to be fair, he died and got resurrected in the Shrine of Resurrection. So in my head, I was like, okay, well, no, it makes sense why Link would be this way. But then Zelda doesn't have that excuse. So
it is a little funky. All I could say is, if Purah can make herself from 100 to 8, I'm sure they would have figured it out afterwards.
True enough. I think that she's like 24 or something, or her body is 24 years old or whatever.
Yeah, even though she's like
Tears
130.
Yeah, she's like at least. So
yeah,
I think
as old as Impa.
She was 20 years old when the calamity happened, so add 100 onto that. But then she also made her body to her 20-year-old self, and then aged at least 4 years. So she's. But then, to be fair, at this point, Zelda is more than 10,000 years old at least. So
yeah,
by the end of Tears of the Kingdom,
that's true. Jeez.
She's who knows, hundreds of thousands of years old for all we know.
We're really messing with these numbers. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of similar in Tears of the Kingdom. The ending is just kind of like soft reset. No harm, no foul. And,
here we are. She's in her 20-ish year old body. She's just back.
Okay, I have a thing where I just really wanted to actually see on. I know that people have shown, and it's basically it's confirmed, but not told to you that they're in a relationship, like Link and Zelda in this game, right?
It's not said, but
it's not set, but they share the same house, kind of. And so if there's only one bed, I'm like, unless Link is being that nice that he's just sleeping in the chair, they're it's unconfirmed, but it's kind of confirmed.
It's the closest thing to confirmed.
It's the closest they get to confirmed, and I was so upset. I was not upset. I was just so disappointed that I didn't get that final scene of them kind of embracing that.
You wanted the kiss scene.
I wanted that kiss scene. I'm like, come on, just give it to me. Come on, you didn't give it to me in any game. well, technically, there's one game where they gave it to you, but it was behind a curtain. That was Zelda 2. But still, it's like, come on, I'm waiting. They didn't give it to me.
I don't think that. I think what is Zellink is the ship name. I don't think that Zellink is always canon. I mean, in one of the games, and like they're
Ocarina
like
Link,
siblings. Yeah,
Ocarina Link, it wasn't.
Yeah, in Ocarina Link, it like basically because they're like kids. So like, come on,
they were kids, and they confirmed that it was like with Malon. It was with the rancher's daughter. And that's what kicked off that village for Twilight Princess. So that makes sense.
And in one of the games, I think they're like siblings or something. So like in some, it doesn't always have to be the case. But in a lot of the games, they heavily hint towards there being a romantic connection. In this game, particular. Okay, in Breath of the Wild, I could see it being more of like she disliked him, but then at the end they were friends.
I think was
in Tears of the Kingdom, it's pretty confirmed.
If in Breath of the Wild it was budding, I wasn't as upset for that because I'm like, okay, this could be a budding romance that happens, but they're not there yet. I'm like, in Tears of the Kingdom, they're there. Like, they're attached at the hip. Like, Zelda, everything that she said in Breath of the Wild and now in Tears of the Kingdom, what she says, the conversation she has with Queen Sonia and King Rauru, I'm just like, give me a break, Nintendo, all right?
Yeah.
Just let me see some affection between the two.
They were
even if it's just like a kiss on the cheek or something and a hug, that would work for me, but I didn't even get that.
In my head, it's because they wanted to leave the opportunities for the headcanons to like, okay, well, no, like Mipha loves Link, so if you ship that, then we can't make like Zelda canon, otherwise you would be disappointed. Or with what's her name? Sheikah girl.
Riju.
No, also Riju. Yeah, is what you're talking about. Also Riju, because she seems to have like at least care what Link thinks about her physical appearance. Yeah, exactly.
Everyone and then
there's Paya.
Yeah, Paya. That's right.
There's like Paya, who clearly has a massive crush on Link. So if you want to like say that, oh, like you ship that, then we can't really make Link canon in this game for that reason, We don't want to disappoint anyone. But then in Tears of the Kingdom, they just went all out. They were like, Paya moved on. She's like, clearly still has like a...
There's a new, taller, and much more chiseled man that's alongside Paya.
True, but I don't know if you have spoken to her in a variety of ways. She still has the hots for... I don't think that she likes him.
Okay.
But she, like... She's like, Link, when you dress like that, I can't, I've been trying to move on, but she's like she's trying to.
I do remember that. If you take off like your clothes and go talk to her,
yeah, and you can talk to her. You can like read her diary and stuff, and talk to her while she's in her bed and stuff. There's all sorts of dialogue. Like she clearly still has feelings for Link, but she's trying to move on because in her diary she even mentions Princess Zelda. She's like, it's so close to being confirmed.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, guys. Well, anyway, before I get too mad, we're going to talk about the other aspects of the ending, and that is the big Ganondorf fight.
Yeah.
There was actually I think there was 4 waves or 4 different like kind of wave fights that you deal with. So
in a way, yeah.
I count the first one as being the mob rush. You fight all the little guys right in front of the room. Then you go fight Ganon, and then he goes all Demon King on you, and then it's the big draconic dragon demon or demon dragon, whichever one.
So let's take it like one phase at a time. That battle where they were fighting like just wave after wave of Ganondorf's forces. At first I thought like that was a really fun fight. I thought that it was really cool, and despite some of the performance issues with the game, I think that it mostly ran pretty well. A lot of the issues the performance issues that this game had were when you had all of the sages aspects with you.
Yeah.
But that battle was actually fairly stable, despite it requiring you to have all entities on the field and actually doing stuff.
There was enough enemies too that they weren't just getting just absolutely like messed up by the other companions.
And there was enough of them during that battle to where I saw Yunobo kill a bokoblin or something, but like I still felt like I personally needed to fight, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
we
had
weren't going to
stake
be
in
able to get
this.
through it. Yeah, exactly. And I just like the cutscene and stuff of like them showing up. So like
Yeah, I thought
at
it was
first you
actually
see,
really cool.
yeah, you see the headshot, and it even plays the same sound effect that a headshot does. I think that the Foley work and the cutscenes was really great in general, but I liked it when they used the same sound effects that you personally do in the game and throughout gameplay. And Tulin comes in and he headshots a guy, and then it does the same like doo kind of sound effect. They're like, oh, that's cool. I see what you're doing. That's super cool.
And I want to compare this real quick to Breath of the Wild and how they handled like your teammates being involved. All they did was shoot from the divine beasts. They didn't actually directly help Link beyond that. So it's
Yeah.
really cool in Tears of the Kingdom. They actually come down, they fight alongside
To see them
you.
show up. And not
Yeah.
only that, so I thought that the idea was that the next generation of champions, they're called sages in this game because Zelda and sages is like a thing. But the
Yeah.
champions were supposed to be kind of the replacement for sages in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the next generation of champions, these sages, have succeeded where the previous generation didn't.
Mhm.
So, like, Mipha died due to Water Blight Ganon. Like, Water Blight Ganon was specifically kind of made in her image to fight her in particular, was kind of like her weakness, and killed her. But I felt like all of the roadblocks that the individual villages faced. So like the Zora, for example, got mucky water and they're fish people. So obviously that like was specifically designed to handicap the Zora in particular.
Yeah.
And yet, like and even Sidon's like bad guy was like was focused around like the muck kind of. There was a muck to rock and stuff. So and it was kind of like Sidon's specific weakness. But at the end, you see all of their enemies, basically the 4 bad guy enemies of the game, the bosses of the game, were supposed to be fighting them, and they like conquered, like Sidon conquered his enemy, whereas Mipha wasn't able to. Like Riju conquered her enemy, where Urbosa wasn't able to. You know, like they are more powerful than those that came before them. I thought that was a really powerful sentiment, and showing like Golgandia, like show or not Golgandia. Well, like the
Marble
Golgara like show up and stuff, like, and then realize like, oh, that enemy was specifically designed for that champion, and then they're like, no, Link, you go ahead, we've got this. You know, that
and
was
then
like
they do
really
because
powerful.
they come back and help you,
and they do. They succeeded where their forebearers hadn't. You know, that's super cool. The meaning of that was super awesome.
Yeah. And fighting Ganondorf was also a pretty fun fight overall. I will say I feel like it was kind of just fighting a beefier version of the Phantom Ganon. So I feel like it could have been a little bit more harder in that regards. But when he started popping out all the other Phantom Ganon, and then all of a sudden I'm fighting 7 Ganons, and also dealing with Blight, or it's called Gloom in this game, Malice, but they call it Gloom. What's the difference? I don't know. I don't know. That was fun. You
get the just at first to go through like the different phases. You have the Menace Unleashed Demon King Ganondorf.
Yeah,
which was just you and Ganondorf just 1v1ing each other basically. Your skills as a swordsman versus his skills as a swordsman.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was actually really cool. Like, he
was
dodges your attack, and he actually enters the same bullet time mode that you do when you do something similar. Once he did that, once he like parried my attack, or like did that like that dodge of my attack, and he entered that bullet time mode, I was like, oh. That's cool. Like, we're fighting at the same level, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
We weren't, because like he was still fairly easy because I did all the other stuff. But well, like that was super cool. Like, we have the same abilities, kind of. And not only that, he has a secret stone. like he's able to use like the time abilities and stuff. Like that was super cool.
Yeah, I actually really liked the fight. Like overall, it was so much better
Mm-hmm.
than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild's fight was, it was very disappointing overall.
Yeah, especially because you don't face a guy, and at least
Yeah,
in
it's
the Menace Unleashed form, like the second phase, like that's just the Gerudo man,
yeah,
and like you, Link, the Hylian man, like you two
it
guys just
feels
fighting.
it feels like, yeah, it feels personal. It feels less
Mm-hmm.
of me just hunting a boar and me actually coming face to face with a man with principles, with a goal, with all these plans, and not just like a animal. You know?
Yeah, and then once you finally conquer that, you get to what you were kind of alluding to, the Master of the Secret Stone, Demon King Ganondorf, where he goes basically from just the man, the Gerudo, the guy, to kind of
Straight demise.
embracing the more Demon King aspects of it, like the demise within himself, his history, kind of.
Yeah.
And you see the what's called the Master of the Secret Stone fight, which is essentially the phase 3. And at that point, you have the Phantom Ganons.
They
Which,
show up. He has a little. It has a little thing about the health bars where the health bar recovers, but
yeah,
then it goes past everything else, and it's like
yeah, that
it's a little bit of like visual comedy in a way because you're just like, oh
that
wow.
was cool. And that was especially cool because at that point, that's when the other sages join you, because you have the other Phantom Ganons, which I also thought was cool because the sages have their phantoms that
Mhm.
they kind of grant you their power, so that way you can have like Tulin with you while you're running around. But it's not actually Tulin; it's Tulin's like sacred stone power kind of being passed to you. He's giving you
Yeah.
his phantom.
Phantom
And
Tulin.
that makes sense because like Ganondorf has his phantoms that show
Yeah, if
up,
Gandalf can do it,
and
why can't you?
he has a secret stone. So that was the power that the secret stone gave him. Was like just like all the other sages, he has the power to make phantom copies of himself. It was cool to see all of the other sages join at that point. I thought that was really cool.
It was a very cool fight. I like how one led into the other. It was
Mhm.
one continuous string. It didn't feel too separated until, and even then it wasn't even all that separated until the fourth part. And that part, for some reason, I didn't I didn't think would happen. I don't know why,
Yeah.
because it was definitely hinted, like Zelda doing it. I didn't think Ganondorf would be like, "Oh, okay, fine, I'll just eat one too, and I'll plunge everything into darkness, regardless of whether I'm aware of it or not."
Yeah.
And when that happened, I'm just like, "Oh, that's actually really cool. That's actually really fun." I didn't, for some reason, it didn't register that that could happen.
I think that this is technically stage 5, not 4, because there is a stage 4.
Oh yeah,
Like mechanically speaking, of like you fighting the demise version of Ganondorf, the Demon King Ganondorf. You're still technically
and then he
called the
has the
Master of the
Phantom
Secret Stone.
versions
But then,
afterwards.
then he swallows the Secret Stone, which, as we learn from the memories, is the way that you become a dragon. That's draconification. And yeah, I didn't see
Yeah.
it coming either for some reason.
Even
I
though
was
it
like,
was like straight up, it was telegraphed to you that, hey, this is gonna happen.
yeah, I thought that was
Uh,
leading towards Zelda, which also happened. But then turns out,
Yeah.
that was so obvious.
That
was-
was the obvious decision that was gonna happen.
And like kind of
Uh,
story design wise, I kind of see that as the fulfillment of what happened in Breath of the Wild. Because the idea of Breath of
Mhm.
the Wild, I think technically it's translated incorrectly. Once you like read it in Japanese, it's slightly different. But in English, at least, the idea was that whoever Ganon threw away his sense of self and just focused on
Yeah.
pure domination. It's translated slightly incorrectly. That's not technically what it was. But to us Westerners, that's what we saw as the story. And
Mhm.
he threw away his sense of self and just became the demon beast Ganon. And that's basically what draconification is that you lose your sense of self and just become a raging beast, a mindless shell of who you once were, and just like only your end goal in sight. And that's what like happened with Zelda. Was her sole goal was to
Restore the Master Sword.
and Ganondorf's whole goal was to just destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he became. He became just destruction. Demon Dragon is what it's actually called.
And that fight with the Demon Dragon was so much more fun than the boar fight. I'll say the
Yeah.
boar fight was one. It was easy, and to be honest, it was also easy with. It's very hard to lose if you even can. The dragon fight. However, it's much more visually thrilling and more fun going through the motions and going through that fight than it was with the boar. Because with the boar Ganon in Breath of the Wild, I never felt like I was in danger. It was very easy
Mhm.
of a fight, and it was over before you knew it. So that was another thing. It was you could get it done in like a minute versus the Dragon Ganon, where it's like, yeah, it might be easy, but at least you're going through this cinematic motion of what you're experiencing, and each step along the way, you're seeing something really cool. So Ganondorf shows up, or the demon, the dragon
Demon
demon
Dragon. Draconified
shows up,
Demon King is what it's called in the subtitle.
and you jump on it. It takes you from the depths all the way to the sky, so that's really cool. And then you jump onto the light dragon, and then Zelda helps you throughout the whole thing.
Mhm.
And it was so fun. It was fun controlling her. It was fun jumping off. It was I and there was something that happened to me, which I think you told me didn't happen to you, where on my way
Mhm.
down, I was being attacked by the dragon, or the demon dragon, and then Zelda, the dragon, came down and actually blocked a lot of the attacks going to my left side, and just blocked the attacks from me
Yeah.
as I was going down. I was like, this is such a cool cinematic look. This is such a cool fight,
I didn't experience
regardless of
that.
whether it was easy.
I did experience me falling because I like wasn't able to get enough altitude. Like I lost the altitude at a certain point and just fell. And I was like, oh, what happens if I fall to the ground? I just wanted to know. But then Light Dragon comes and actually picks me up and takes me up higher again. So she's always helping you throughout that battle in like multiple ways. I thought that was kind of cool. It wasn't just Link versus Ganondorf. It was Link and Zelda versus Ganondorf.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the Twilight Princess fight, where you're on horseback with Zelda and you have to help her shoot the light arrows.
It
I liked
reminded
the
me-
teaming up.
Have you ever played Shadow of the Colossus?
No, I have not.
Okay,
That is definitely a game that I need to put on my radar.
it's one of my favorite games of all time, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into game development in the first place. That's the game that made me realize that the way that most people think of video games are as basically like toys. Like in your head, they're
Mhm.
digital toys, they're ways to pass time. But that game made me realize that video games can be art. As I was playing the ending of Tears of the Kingdom, I felt like there's no way they didn't take notes from Shadow of the Colossus, because I'm literally doing Shadow of the Colossus right now. I am like on this dragon, like attacking this dragon, and it feels kind of wrong in a way. It feels like it felt so cool, you know. It was such a powerful sensation of like I am on there, actually fighting this dragon, this beast, this colossal being. It was so freaking cool.
It was
Absolutely
very fun.
loved it.
I really did enjoy that fight. It was also cool. There was one point where in the fight, the only time I ever got close to death was for the first attack, I landed directly onto the spot that you're supposed to hit. And I did that, and then that was fine. But for the second one, I just landed somewhere on the dragon because I told myself I'm just going to run to it, not realizing that I was getting gloomed.
Yeah.
So I had to run the entire length of it, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually dying. I didn't think this through. I didn't think that's how it would happen. So that was, even though I do say it was like the easiest fight, I still almost died because I was dumb.
Yeah, but then you jump off the dragon, and once you're not on the dragon anymore, because you're in sunlight, you get de-gloomed.
Yeah,
and then it's Zelda heals you.
It's a very hard fight to lose.
It's kind of similar to Dark Beast Ganon, where it's so easy that you're gonna do it. You're gonna beat it first time, you know? But it's so much cooler because you're an active participant. Whereas during Dark Beast Ganon, like, yeah, you're running around and shooting the glowing parts. But, like, has anyone actually gotten, like, attacked by those, like, laser beams that it shoots? I genuinely want to know, has anyone gotten hit by those?
I feel like if I stood still, they'd still miss.
Yeah, so like it was such an easy battle, and you know, technically, Demon Dragon was just as easy because I can't imagine too many people actually died. but it was more interactive. There was more parts to it. There was falling, there was gliding to the right spots, there was running to the parts and attacking them and then jumping off. There was like so many. It was a puzzle in and of itself.
That is a much better way of phrasing it. This is a much more interactive fight versus the Beast Ganon.
Versus run around on a horse and shoot sometimes. And then
sometimes you don't even need to move the horse. The horse does it anyway.
And then at the very end you do the
freebie one shot.
Yeah. The jump and then the updraft and then you shoot the bullet time shot. Which, to be fair, that was super cool.
It's cool. Yeah, that was the most interactive part of that fight. But
just the mat. That's a cool moment in general.
It's a cool moment. I just wish the other moments were cool too.
Yeah, and all of Demon Dragon was cool.
Yeah, all of Demon Dragon was cool. It was like the whole fight was fun, and then right after the fight, it comes, at least in my opinion, that's the controversial part where, everything kind of gets reset. Rauru, you defeat the dragon demon. Rauru shows up along with Sonya and just kind of undoes the draconification, which I don't know how they did that, because they kind of made it seem like to me that wasn't a thing they could do.
Yeah, it's
otherwise that would have been kind of important information to convey at the time. Minoru was, I guess, lying about saying, "Oh, draconification, you can't come back." It's like Rauru was right there. You could have said, "Well, I have this thing that I can do."
The real magic was love the entire time.
Yeah, it felt like some that.
However, Fifth Element nonsense.
Yeah, I did like afterwards where you had to go save her one last time. Got to go to her to catch her. I was like, "Oh, this is a cool scene," where she's unconscious and you have to skydive to her. That being said, you also slam that water really, really hard, and in no other area of life do I think you would live that, but it's a game. It's fine.
All of Link's bones should be broken.
Yeah, and you went headfirst too. I'm like, no one's neck snapped. Like, it wasn't even a large body of water, mind you. It looked like a pond, so it didn't even look that big.
There's a similar moment in the beginning of the game where it's like, come on.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I should take at least a couple hearts worth of damage if you don't.
If not, he should be dead.
Yeah. And then, they came out, and I was really, 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 really wanting Link to say one line or something.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't have to be a full sentence. I just wanted to hear a voice actor behind Link. I don't know why, because, in the last game we got Zelda, and everybody loves the new talking Zelda games. I still kind of wanted just one instance of a talking Link for this one. Just for like a word or two.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that.
He does have a voice actor because of all those grunts and stuff. Kengo Takanashi, he did Link. He played Link. I can't imagine he was paid very well, but as well as the others.
Make some grunts, we'll work with it.
But yeah, I think that would have been funny. Like hearing him actually say a word, a single word. Yeah.
Just like, or like an I do or yes, or just let's
welcome
do it.
Back.
Or just like, like welcome back. Or like, I would have had a meltdown if he just said like, I missed you or something.
Or I love you.
Yeah.
Confirming the Zelda.
Yeah. I'm like going through all like, I just really wanted that emotional conclusion that I was looking for. And even in the after credits, which they all just say goodbye to Minoru, and I'm like, this is the after credits? This doesn't seem like much. They just take a tour of the Temple of Time, and then Minoru says, okay, bye guys.
Same as like, Breath of the Wild in the way, like Breath of the Wild's final cutscene wasn't much either, but actually, to be fair, Tears of the Kingdoms has more. At least it has some story part of it, which is the Sage Spirit disappearing.
Yeah, it had some niceties because like everyone was together. They all pledged their loyalty to Zelda. I didn't get that emotional Zelda and Link, even though they did say something. There was like this weird scene where they said, we're going to pledge loyalty to Zelda. And then everyone just kind of looked around. They were like, her.
They messed up.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting there like, thing. Yeah. And I'm like, you mean Zelda and Link? Like, I was like, is that a nudge? Like,
yeah.
What's going on here?
So
And they all like looked at Link, and I'm like, "What's happening?" But then nothing happened.
Yeah, because she's still called the princess, but at this point she's basically the queen of Hyrule.
Yeah, I was like, you should be the queen. Just solidify it.
Because a queen, maybe because the reason why she's not queen is because she needs a king to be considered queen. But
yeah, we're going by Shrek 1 logic.
Here's Link right here. Like, yeah, she needs to be married in order to be considered a monarch. But then here's Link right here. Link and ... Ah ha 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 ha.
And I'm just like, we laughing it off, and I'm just sitting here just all red-faced, like, what are you doing? Like, the plot twist should be like, Mineru's sitting there like, oh, by the way, this altar is meant for like wedding stuff, so let's do that right here and right now. I don't know. It's like,
meanwhile, Brad is blushing. Like, is it canon? Is it canon?
Yeah, I'm like, hurry up. I don't know. I'm gonna chalk this up to just a very like, hey, this is a very Brad one. I understand that not everybody cares as much as me about this.
No, I think that everyone. No, I think that everyone wants Zelling to be canon in this game in particular, and it's so close to being canon, and it so frustratingly isn't.
I know. It's just like, at this point, I feel like I'm at the circus because they're jerking me around, and I don't know what's.
That's a weird way to put it, but I see what you're saying. Jerking Brad around.
I mean, my other thought was, I feel like I'm at a brothel because they keep jerking me around, so I'm glad I didn't say that one.
Now that we've recovered and had ourselves a little chat, what did you think?
Leave us a comment on YouTube and like the episode.
That really helps us out.
We're also on Twitter and Instagram at the Low HP Podcast, if you want to reach out there.
And subscribe if you want to catch more of us on YouTube.
We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Links in the show notes, as always.